Hey everyone, it's Bree popping in here to talk about this week's episode before we jump into it. So, unfortunately, at 14 minutes, I lose all of Alex's audio and video. So, I had to kind of Frankenstein this episode together, and Alex was actually the person asking Mike the questions during the episode. So I went back and recorded over the questions that he's asking. So throughout the episode, you'll hear Mike speak. It'll stop. I'll go into the next question and talk about what we're asking him next, and then I'll go into his answer. So unfortunately, about 14-ish minutes, we lose Alex, and he's not in the rest of the episode, but we were still able to salvage it. We were still able to let you hear Mike Doehla's experiences and advice and expertise. And I was so happy I was able to save this episode. But I just want to preface that it was put together a little bit differently. Also, I forgot to plug in my podcast mic. So my sound is very echoey because I am in my new office that we just moved into with the new house, and all I have in that room is a desk. So it is very echoey, and I forgot to plug in my mic. So I just want to apologize ahead of time, one, for how the episode is put together. It's not our usual type of episode, but it's still a wonderful episode. You'll still be able to follow along. It's not going to be hard or weird or anything like that. And then please just excuse my audio and how echoey it is. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bree.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the Damn Strong Podcast. And we have a guest today. We have Mike Doehla. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with everybody.
So a quick background on Mike for those who don't know. And actually one of my clients mentioned, I said that I randomly casually mentioned Mike Doehla, and she's like, "Oh my God, Mike Doehla of StrongerU." And I was like, yeah, that's the one. And I was really excited. So quick background for those of you who don't know, Mike, he's the founder of StrongerU, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, or if it's a little blurry on any of this, but founder of StrongerU, sold it, now a 2-time professional dad. Congratulations on the second daughter.
Thank you.
And retired guy who gives really good advice in his spare time. Does that kind of summarize what you're up to now?
That is kind of my life. I'm also a co-owner of a little local
Bavonas?
Yeah,
Yep.
But that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm trying to find the next steps for me, but I don't know what that is. I'm just being dad now and just giving advice for free wherever I can.
One of the things during this podcast, I am going to hopefully dig an ice pick into finding out what you want to do next, because I've been so curious about, I think it's 3 years that you're kind of in this transition, maybe period. I'm going to call it pause, period, sort of. Not sure how much you want me to talk about that or not.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, typical business sale stuff, there's usually non-competes, which make absolute sense when someone buys your business, because they don't want you to sell the business and then be like, hey, I'm going to just do it again. So, completely makes sense. And, there was a lot of people that are like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, yes, you would have. You would have.
Yeah, 100%.
It makes sense. And it's, to me, honestly, it's good for me to just chill for a little bit, because and I'm sure we'll talk about it, I'm a crazy person about this stuff. So, so take it away, guys. I won't rant too long.
I would love if you give everyone a background on StrongerU and just kind of how it started, the idea, building it up, and then selling that. I'd love to hear the background of all that.
Yeah. So I joke sometimes on podcasts that this could take 2 minutes or 3 hours. So I'll try to go somewhere in between. So I'm giving you an hour and a half. Anyway, I started StrongerU, or the genesis of StrongerU was me trying to break into the fitness industry. I was one of these guys that went to community college, then went to online for-profit school to finish my bachelor's that ended up going out of business. So, one of these junk schools.
Wow.
Didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. Was working in human resources, kind of a low-level job, very, very basic, low-skill work, not very fulfilling. Thought that I could marry my passion for fitness and nutrition with my career. So I had every idea from renting a box truck, filling it with equipment, driving to people's houses and training. I fell into the CrossFit world and decided to turn, at the time, my house in Newburgh, New York, my 2-car garage into a gym that was affiliated with CrossFit Newburgh. no one gave a crap. I didn't really do a great job, didn't really know what I was doing, could only do it for an hour a day after my full time job. So, of course, if you couldn't make it at that time, it would never work. And then I realized that the biggest issue for people from where I was standing was the food. And I thought like my skills of spending a crap ton of time on the internet and being like a food detective for people and trying to offer something that I didn't think existed at the time in terms of like this total package of nutrition and community and data and accountability. Um, I just started talking about it online and it just kind of blew up. This was 2015. Ended up helping over 50,000 people almost entirely through word of mouth. I didn't do paid marketing, which is just I think it's just so crazy. It's weird because it's my story, but if I heard about that, I'd be like, no, people have to spend money to get clients.
Right.
That's just to say that our clients were so successful and so happy that we could kind of just sit back and they could pull the strings for us. And then I was approached in like 2018 to sell the business. Decided to not do it at that time, and was re-engaged later and decided to do it. Life is was a little different at that point, and I still love the fitness nutrition stuff, but solidifying my family's future and doing what I thought was best for the business and myself and everybody at the time, I just decided let me do it and see what happens next.
You're the dream scenario for me, which is, help a ton of people, make a lot of money, and then get out and spend time with your family. Like that
Yeah.
is so if I can somehow replicate the Mike Doehla experience, that's my goal. I'd love to be able to do that.
And it's never it's
Um,
like it's weird because like people are like I want to do it or that's my plan, and I'm always like if it happens it happens. It was never my plan. I never had this goal of like having money and being financially free and starting a business and selling it. I just like legit wanted to just help enough people where I could
Yeah.
pay my bills. That's
yeah.
all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
What were some of the key decisions that led you to sell? Compared to 2018 to you sold in 2020, right?
Yeah, I probably get the years. 2021
Okay.
sold. Yeah,
So,
June.
what were some of the key decisions that changed between 2018 and 2021? Was it mostly the family landscape, or what kind of involved that?
Yeah, I think it's like you just start looking at everything like everything is awesome now and I love everything now, but will I want to do this for the rest of my life? Like if I have to do it. And
Yeah.
my big thing was like I always did this as like it was like play that paid me. Like I loved it so much that I would have done it for free for a while.
Hmm.
So yeah, the family thing, maybe uncertainty in the market, like competition,
Mm.
regulation, just general interest. There's like so many reasons that like it just makes sense when you're presented with an offer that you just have to jump on it, and you're kind of an idiot if you don't. And there will
Yeah.
be a lot of people who will be in your shoes that will say I wouldn't have done it. And the reality is like nobody can ever say what they would do unless they're in that exact situation and they are you. So like there's like weird like insecurities I have. Like people are like, "Oh, Mike's a sellout. I wouldn't have done that." It's like,
You have
what?
no. That would piss me off.
It is annoying because it's like
Yeah.
and I get defensive. I'm like, well, first of all, you don't have to worry about it because you'll never ever build a business. Like, second of all, like if you were presented with this opportunity, you would do it, and if you wouldn't, you were clinically insane. So, I mean, it's weird because like you make a decision that you think is like the utilitarian decision that it's like the best decision for the most people. And I don't know if that's gonna be the case, but ultimately, like we have to be a little selfish at times in life because if we're not, we're just gonna give away everything that is us to other people. And
Yeah.
one day, my girls and my wife, like we're gonna get a little older, and we're gonna look back, and it's gonna be like, well, I'm glad Dad doesn't have his cell phone glued to his hand anymore. Like I didn't want to raise kids in that environment, and that's what it takes. And
Yeah.
that's why I think a lot of people won't make it happen because they literally can't. And that's the luck I had was like I didn't have kids when I was building this. And when I did have my kid and I was still involved in the business after I sold, like I wasn't mentally into it like I was when there was no kid. Like
Man,
Stronger You
don't let
is,
my wife Maddie hear this, because I've been that this has been my you and me have the same brain on this. It's like
you,
as soon as I have a
maniac.
kid, that's going to be my focus.
Yeah. It's so hard to balance. And that's the thing. Like, people will paint the picture that you can do both very well. And you can to an extent. But, like,
Sure, there's got
on
to
a
be sacrifices.
Saturday night when someone mentioned Stronger You in a Facebook group, like, guess who was there thanking them?
Yeah.
Like, I was in there.
Yeah,
Now it's like, yeah.
there was this like valedictorian speech or whatever I was watching, and maybe you see her, she was a PhD graduate or something like that. And she was like, I have a PhD, I'm, a lab researcher, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I wear all these hats. And everyone goes, how do you do it? She goes, I don't. Like
Yeah.
when I'm in, doing research for my PhD, I'm missing out on my kid's soccer game. When I'm at my kid's soccer game, I'm missing out on an opportunity where I could get promoted. She's like, I don't do it all. And things do have to give and take. And I think in society, a lot of people see like, oh, you can do it all and be the superhero. And it's like something will take a hit whether you like it or not.
Yeah, there's just not enough time and attention span.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, you don't, and that's kind of the thing with like parenting advice now. It's like, put the phone down, pay attention to your kids, do this. It's like, yeah, but like, you have to kind of like ignore the kid at a time so you can get life done. So
Yeah.
like, I don't want people to think like you can't do both, but it's a lot easier when you have one focus.
Yeah.
When you got that offer, was it an immediate black and white decision? Like it was like immediately you're like, yep, you ran home. I'm sorry, I don't remember your wife's name, but you ran home to your wife and you're like, hey, look at this. Or was
So
it like something you kind of sat on for a few weeks?
no, it's a wild experience selling a business. Like like it's so funny because like when I announced it to our team, like there was like rumblings like this came out of nowhere, and it's like, well, first of all, like if you sell a business, you should never tell people who absolutely do not have to know.
Hmm,
Too many things can go wrong.
sure.
There's just too much risk in it. Um, but when you get the initial like interest, like there's so much due diligence that has to get done. They have to look into numbers, look into processes. Just you basically open the doors to everything that has ever been said, done, whatever in terms of the business. So it was like a Friday, I think, when I got the offer. I just got an email at like 5 o'clock or something. Opened it up, saw a number, and was like, "Oh, cool, like all right, like." And then I was sitting on the couch, or I walked on the couch with my wife. I was like, "Here's the number, like we're good." Like
We're good.
it's still like it's still like five. I think it took like 5 or 6 months after that to wrap it all up because
Oh,
even after
really?
the offer,
Wow.
like that's when the deep due diligence happens.
Yeah,
And this is typical with any business. Like,
sure.
it's very well known in like the business world when you're selling, like things can fall apart. I was pretty confident that it wouldn't because of like the situation was good, the relationship was good, the reasoning, the strategic partnership was good. We were clean, like the business was pretty like transparent. So yeah, so it's freaking crazy, man. It's all crazy.
So the other day you had, post on your story, and this was the whole reason that I asked you to be on the podcast. You had listed out all these things that essentially the nutrition, the fitness industry is doing wrong, and how you kind of flip that on its head to go about it. I'm going to say the right way. I'm going to say the Mike Doehla way, and I think the Mike Doehla way works. If you want to get people good results, if you don't want to BS people, and you want to grow your business, I think what we're about to cover is highly impactful. So some of the things that you covered, the way I went about it was I went through each line that you wrote, and then I drafted up a question about it. I'm not
Okay.
sure if this is necessarily the best way to do it, but the overarching view is people are going about it this way. I am going to go about it this way. So the first thing that you had mentioned was diets are restrictive, so I'm going to be flexible. So my question is, what kind of strategies did you implement to strike a balance between promoting flexibility while still maintaining accountability?
Yeah, so there's this thing I called, and I don't know if I invented it. I probably didn't. I'm sure someone else said it at some point, but structured flexibility. So people need to be flexible, but they need structure as well. Like if you're too flexible, then you're just naturally, because of biology and the food environment we're in, you're just going to eat recklessly. If you're too structured, you're going to do one of these diets that cancels out everything that people generally like the ketos and the carnivores and just all this crap that is, I
Yeah.
can't believe it exists.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do like the flexible dieting approach. People are going to eat the number of calories they need. I'm going to break that down into the macronutrients that I think they should eat based on their lifestyle and their goals and their abilities. And then they're going to do well because that's ultimately what matters. Like everybody has this thing that they think they're a little bit special when it comes to, well, life in general, but food primarily, since that's the topic of discussion. They think that certain foods do certain things for them and only them. And if someone else eats these same foods, something else is going to happen. And it's like, really, what's different is the amount of food that we eat.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about calories and macros, people that are like anti calories are like, oh, you're telling me that all calories are the same. And we're like, well, yes, if it's a unit of measurement, but no, we're not saying like chicken calories are the same as cookie calories. We're saying that in a mixed diet that most people will eat, if you eat 2,000 calories and this number of protein, carbs, and fat, like I do not care what you eat because I know you're going to make good decisions to hit those numbers and manage your hunger. And that's kind of the thing. Like with the number of clients I had, I never even knew what they were eating because I didn't care. Like I didn't care if you ate chicken or pork tenderloin or fish or a protein shake. I cared about the numbers and the freedom that people had made them do really well. The funny thing is people have it backwards. Like to hit these numbers, you have to do the habits. Like
Mhm.
you're going to plan, you're going to educate yourself around food, like you're going to probably sleep better. You're going to understand the value of workouts and general movement. Like you're going to want to manage hunger. So you're not going to just try to hit numbers with like junk foods. So it's like people now are getting really weird about these numbers. And I'm like, listen, I don't know how to say it without coming across a certain way, but I have more experience than you. And I'm telling you, people's relationships with food improved along with their health, their body composition, and the life of basically everyone around them. So forgive me for being so strongly opinionated about people tracking or having knowledge, but it friggin' works. And like, you're not winning this argument. You've helped 7 people.
Yeah.
We, it's, it's just, it's making me a little crazy because I see a lot of potential clients not seeing success because their coach thinks that numbers in nutrition are bad. I'm like, good luck. Like you're going to tell them some version of eat clean and that how did that work in the past.
When I feel like people who talk about this as well, they'll go, "Oh, so you just want your clients to eat burgers and pizza all the time?" It's like, no, like
No,
first of all, like you're not
you don't give
naturally
them
going to feel
300 fat. Like
that.
that's what they
Yeah,
would need to do that. They don't get 300
exactly.
grams of fat. Like, so no. And these
Yeah,
arguments are so easy to knock down.
I know.
And
Yeah,
it's like, it's exhausting to see them
yeah,
over and I'm like, you don't understand how this works.
yeah.
We're not saying to just eat whatever you want because you can't. The
Yeah, true.
built-in
And then you'll
guardrail.
feel if you were just eating pizza for every meal, you're going to feel terrible. And then you're going to go to eating fruits and vegetables. You'll learn your lesson. And then we don't have this problem. And it's, all these like argumental fallacies just come out when people try to argue through this. And you're just like, okay.
That's the big thing I like, right? Like learn your lesson. Like people, that's why like tracking is so cool because like someone will be like, "Oh, I'm going to have 4 eggs, I'm going to have sausage, and I'm going to have buttered toast." And then they're like, "Holy crap. I just blew my fat for 2 days." It's like, "Yes, you learned your lesson. You learned what foods have in them, what they're made of, which I call like the anatomy of the food, right? And then you know the value of planning. So
Yeah,
it's again when people talk about like, oh, tracking makes people obsessed. It's like, no, not tracking and not knowing what you're going to eat and worrying about your body weight and health makes you obsessed. The people that plan their day set it and forget it, and they don't think about food the rest of the day.
yeah,
So the big barrier is like people just don't plan. It's and like we used to tell people like set an alarm the night before, plan your day in MyFitnessPal or whatever app you want to use, break it down. If you need to hit your macros and like you're off by like 30 grams of protein, look at the portions that you have planned, increase or decrease, and you come within a certain number of grams and you're good. And if you
yeah.
want to swap it out the next day, swap it out.
I was gonna say I had a client who, and this is more of the extreme planning scenarios, but a client who recently she texted me and she's like, "Hey, I just spent an hour planning. I have the next 16 days planned out." And I was like, wow. And she's someone who's very social, very busy. And you may look at that and think, okay, wow, she had to sit down for a whole hour. But you're like, the next 16 days, she hardly has to pull out My Fitness Pal. She doesn't think about any of her social events. Like that hour is worth its weight in gold. So now for the next 16 days, she can go out to the concert, she can go to the friends, the pool day, all that. And she's already good to go. And so it's like, I think a lot of times we have to remember like planning ahead of time and planning in the moment takes the same amount of time. The
Right.
difference is you have overwhelming anxiety planning it in the moment, not sure what you're going to do, versus no anxiety if you just do it beforehand. But it takes the same amount of time. People think it
Right.
takes longer to pre-plan than it does.
Spend
So
time now to save it later. Like, and
exactly.
this took, she did 16 days in an hour. What does
Yeah.
that break down to to a day?
Right.
You know, like
Exactly. Yeah.
minutes.
A
Yeah.
couple minutes. Yeah.
Right. And that's the
Exactly.
thing, right? People get really scared at first because they're like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. It's like, yeah, well, it'll take you 20 minutes at first, and then it'll take you five. The first
You
time you
learn more.
deadlift, you're going to be beat up, and then you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to do this again. But the next few times, you're like, oh, cool. I don't feel
Yeah.
too bad. Oh,
You learn more failing than you do succeeding. And if you can
yeah.
just allow yourself to fail, you'll be that much more successful. So the next question that we asked Mike here was about community. He is terrific at building community and has been for a really long time. So we asked him the question of what types of activities or interaction do you encourage within a community to foster support and connection among its members?
It's like a lot of like positive reinforcement. Like obviously you lead from the top and you talk about the things and you say the things that you want other people to do. But when someone would comment on someone else's stuff in a helpful way, like thank them, encourage them, talk about it a lot, and just make it like a cool place. And it's so hard to like just think about what these things were, which is what like why I want to do this like post for people, because like we did everything from like local meetups, giveaways. We did like live videos with members so other people could meet them. We told them to like buddy up. A lot of them came from other people. So like because we were so our growth was so organic, like everyone there was there from someone else. So they always like kind of talked to each other. They had little side chat groups with people like them. Um, we would talk about like all the different workouts that everyone were doing. So like, oh, these people do Pilates. Cool. I didn't know they were in here. I thought it was just like CrossFit or Peloton or weightlifting or whatever. So just like constantly engaging and talking and sharing, which a lot of people think they're doing, but they're just kind of doing it in more like a more structured manner. And for me, it was always and that's kind of the thing. My approach to business wasn't very structured. I was just like, I'd go off a lot of feedback and just make my decisions like that. I think I was pretty good at just seeing like what was going on and always having a pulse on everything, and I could just react in that moment. And I was able to do that because I was on there so much. Like, if I had an office, like people would think of it as like the Facebook group we had because it was just like madness in there. So.
How did you get people to engage or to yeah to engage in your engagement? Because I feel like that's the thing is like you try to make this community or build it, and you're engaging and you're posting questions and you're doing, hey, everyone post their dog, it's pup
Yeah,
Friday or whatever, and it's just crickets. Like, did you
yeah.
find there was a way that you got people to, because it's one thing to post stuff, it's another to get people to actually engage in with what you're doing, you
I
know?
think, yeah, I think back and I'm like, man, I would really highlight how helpful everyone was to each other. And
Mm,
like I brought them in as like they were almost like the assistant coach to a lot of people.
yeah.
So like people naturally want to help people. Like it feels really good to help people and it's really awesome to know that you change somebody or help somebody. So when they would see like, I don't know, just some Mary commented on like Sam's post about what to get at Trader Joe's, and then everyone's like, "Oh man, like that's she was so helpful," or Sam was so helpful. Like they just want to do it. It was just the vibe of the place, and that's kind of like culture is one of those things that kind of happens naturally, but you can kind of pull the strings. And then
Mhm.
when you have it, like people used to joke that we were a cult. Like I think you guys maybe saw, like I shared the other day our first negative review was a 1 star. That guy was like, kicked the guy out because he was being a jerk to everybody. And he left a bad review and he said borderline cult. And I'm like, all right, cool.
1 star
That
review,
thing, I
5 star
put it
comment.
everywhere and everyone was like, yeah, we're a little like food family in here. And that's like, I don't know exactly how it happened. It was just something that I've always done online. Like I've been posting on message boards for 20 something years. luckily I had all these crappy jobs that I could just sit on a computer and post things. Like it taught me how to get people engaged and care
Yeah.
about each other.
So the next question that we asked Mike is all about client education. We asked him, how do you empower your clients to become knowledgeable about nutrition? And what educational resources or tools do you provide to help your clients understand the principles behind their dietary choices?
Yeah. So first, I think like the value of knowledge is so important in terms of how well you do on these programs. Like you just do things you trust and you understand. Like if you're going to do one of these diets that doesn't explain why you have to cut out carbs, like you're not going to trust it. And you're like, I don't know, this sounds weird. So like I would get into the nitty gritty with a lot of stuff, and not like super like nerdy science, but like I'm big on like analogies, helping people understand this stuff, and they would know basically everything I knew if they were following me within like a couple months. Like I would share everything, and they would then tell their friends. And what do you think that did for our business when they were able to explain what we do? They got everybody over here. So I mean, and the resources were like we did live videos all the time, like Q&As, which like is crazy. And a lot of coaches are like they're a little intimidated by it because they're like, oh my God, what if they ask me a question I don't know? Well, you tell them you don't know and you'll find the answer.
100%.
But
Yep.
really, what do you think these people are going to ask you? Do you think they're going to ask you some like PhD level, like lab science nerd stuff? No, they're like, yeah, they're like, hey, Mike, yeah, I want to make a burger and I want it to be less fat. Can you help me? Or like, hey, how do I know when I'm ready for maintenance? Or like, what's another way to make chicken? Like, these are the questions. So get on there and educate the crap out of these people. Create resources that are fun to consume and not boring pieces of crap. Give them lots of different ways to learn this stuff and consume it because not everyone wants to read things. Like we have a joke internally, or we had a joke when I was there. What guide? Our members would be like, what guide? When they signed up, we gave them like this 20-page, like basically little small ebook about the program, why we do what we do, like nutrient timing, all this stuff. And people loved it. But there was a lot of people like when it was talked about in the group, people would say, what guide? So it like basically became a meme. We were like, all right, like, we gotta like let's pretty this thing up and make it shorter. But I'm like, no, they need to know all this because that's like the hardest thing is figuring out like what do people need to know now versus later. Like we're like, oh, maybe it's week 6 they need to learn about alcohol. I'm like, oh shit, man, they're getting drunk now. Like tell them now about alcohol. So that's tough because a lot of people don't care to know anything or learn anything. So us telling them like why they need to learn it so they can do better. And ultimately it made some of the best coaches we've ever had. Like we hired a lot of the people that became passionate about the knowledge.
So the next question that we asked Mike was about balance in your coaching style. A lot of people out there are either drill sergeant or cheerleader, and you know what? We should all be finding a way to be somewhere in the middle. So our question for him was, how do you strike a balance between providing guidance and support while also holding your clients accountable?
I always try to like make things a little funny. I'm straight up about stuff. Like if someone's like just excuse after excuse, like I'm not one of these coaches that are like, oh, it's so I get it. It's hard. Like yes, it's hard, but there are a lot of people in this world that just aren't doing crap and they want to get to another point. So let's talk about that. But I'm gonna support you, and that's why I say like I'm gonna give you a hug. So I think that mix is why my clients did so well. What I see a lot in the industry is like coaches are way too soft. Like, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And then it's like, all right, well, it's been 9 weeks and you said it's okay 9 times. So do they need a cheerleader or do they need a drill sergeant? And it's not the drill sergeant, it's not the cheerleader, it's something kind of in between. Someone that can build trust and likability from their clients. And that's what I think is missing a lot of times. Like people don't follow what you say because you either make it too hard, too easy, or they don't know the value of doing it. And they don't care that you're the one telling them. Like you can kind of read the room when you're talking to these clients. Like if somebody's like, I don't know, a certain type of way where you think a joke or a kick in the butt is gonna like make them cry on the other end, Like you'll probably know that before you
Yeah.
get to the point of deciding whether to do it or not. If somebody is, 9 weeks in, like I said before, and on their 53rd diet, like, cheerleader is just going to make them go to another diet. Like, take a chance and be straight with them and
Yeah.
tell them why. So it's like I think you just have to be emotionally intelligent about how people are going to react to stuff. And again, it all comes down to like building a good relationship and communicating with people, and which is what a lot of coaches don't do because they gatekeep communication and they
Hmm.
say, "Oh, you can only talk to me at this time." And it's like, "All right, well, how are you going to get to know this person when you never talk to them?" And you could, you follow these people on social media. They follow you. You see what they do and what they're all about. You learn about their personality, and it's like I never really did this stuff on purpose. I just kind of happened, So I don't know. To me, like, and we had like world class NPS scores. Like everybody loved the program. So this stuff works. Like you don't have to be one or the other. So
Yeah. I had a coach on my roster at a period of time. We talked a lot about her clients and talked about those
yeah.
things. And I think one thing that coaches lack a lot is like stepping into their authority. Like
Mhm.
you are the professional. Someone is coming to you for the
Right.
guidance. And so I asked her one day, I was like, when you talk to your clients, do you ask them if they want to do something or do you tell them? And I think there's times for both, right? But she's like, her client was a hanger step goal. And she's like, do you want to start waking up in the morning for your step goal? I was like, or do you say, hey, you're not doing it after work. We've tried this for 6 weeks.
Yep.
You are now going to be getting up in the morning. She's like, I ask them. I was like, quit asking
Yeah.
them. I go, you
I,
need to
I love
tell them.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to tell them what they need to do. Again, you can ask them and compromise and be like, hey, you know what? For 6 weeks, you keep saying you're going to do it after work and you don't, repeating the same thing
Yeah.
over and over, and let's do something different. How about morning or lunch? You pick. As like start telling your clients what they're doing instead of asking them. It's like you need to step into your authority as a professional. And when you go
Right.
to hire a tax person, your tax person go, do you want to file your quarterly
Yeah.
taxes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Right.
this is why you should file your quarterly taxes. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want to do, but this is the benefit. This is why you should do it. And I'd really advise us doing it. And
Yeah.
so I think the biggest thing is there's that imposter syndrome a little bit too. And again, some of it I think is maybe confronting clients that people are uncomfortable with. So they just cheerlead because it's comfortable. But I think it's also kind of having that imposter syndrome and just being like, hey, you need to step into your authority as that professional for your client.
Right. And this is like it's so funny because it reminds me when people are like, I ask my clients if they want to track and they say no. So we do something else. I'm like, well, I mean, why would anyone choose to do the thing that
Track.
sounds
Yeah.
harder? It's like,
Right.
like someone's like, if I ask my 7-year-old what they want to wear to school, they're going to dress like a freaking fool. So
Yeah.
like, no, give them a choice. Show them
Yeah.
the value. Like, you're not going to wear that to school. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's a sheet. Like, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
You put on
So, like,
actual clothes.
right. So like,
Yeah.
you don't ask them to an extent.
Yeah.
Don't give them permission to choose the easy thing all the time.
I
Yeah.
nannied for so many years. And the biggest trick that always helped me is not telling them to go to bed. Do you want to go to bed in 1 minute or 5 minutes? And so it gives the kids this thought that they have a choice when they really don't, but it's
Yep.
the illusion of this choice. And I mean, technically, your clients are having a choice of get the steps in the morning or lunch, but they don't have the choice of not getting their steps in. And so
Right.
it's kind of like, not to like, if my clients are listening, it's not to dumb you down to say dealing with children. A lot of those tactics kind of come into play. So
But it's what you have to do. Like my little daughter, 22 months, like she's in a phase where she doesn't want to change her diaper. So
yeah.
this morning, this is the joke I played on her. I held up two of the same diapers. I said, which one do you want to wear? And she picked.
Yeah.
She was like, "Yeah, I got this, dude. I picked the right one."
Yeah, it's great. So next we ask Mike here about hiring and jobs. So it's no secret, he obviously talked about in the beginning of the podcast that he built a wonderful company called StrongerU. And with that came hiring people. So we wanted to know from him, how did he go about selecting and hiring individuals who aligned with his vision and his values for the company?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, my values are pretty straightforward. Like, I guess if we're talking about professionally or personal, like, let's go professionally first. It's like the values are like, do you understand nutritional science? Like real nutritional science, not like this famous podcaster slash professor that just wants to sell a bunch of stuff. it was basically like, all right, they are aligned with our philosophy because they came from X network. We'll give them an assessment to gauge their coaching ability, to kind of put a question out there that if they answer it the wrong way, like we know it's a red flag. Like it could
Mm,
be something like, "What do you think about diet soda?" And like if they're like, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world," I'm like, "Okay, you're not up on the research that we're talking about over here."
right.
And also, we would ask like, who are people in the industry you follow or you look for education or inspiration? Of course, there's red flags there. If they said a certain number of people, we know that like we can't have people in our community that are saying the opposite of what the philosophy of Stronger You was. So that was pretty much it. And then like, can you answer people quickly? You know, and it's sometimes you could argue it's like that question where when you're young they're like, do you have transportation to work? And if you don't, you're like, oh, I'll figure it out later. But like that never happened to us. No one like tricked us about their availability. So it's like, this is what we do, this is what we are. You can make a good living in an industry where basically nobody can make a good living. So like if you're the right person, come on over. And I think we only had to let go like two coaches ever. We've had like probably over 100. I think we were really good at hiring the right people and they helped us create the brand that built a really cool business.
Yeah. Were there any specific questions that you were able to ask where you knew, and this is something that Alex and I have talked about before, is like one of the biggest thing that's a great quality to have in the coach is having empathy.
Yeah.
And so how did you know that the people you were hiring were the questions that you asked to know, one, they had empathy, two, they weren't a cheerleader or a drill sergeant? Like, how did you, I think like the diet soda and what your beliefs are
Yeah.
nutritionally probably is a little bit easier to get through, which is
Yeah.
all great questions. What questions were you able to ask, or if you remember, that got to the personality of the person?
Yeah, I
If that
think it
makes
was
sense.
like somebody's not reaching or somebody's not their goal is weight loss. They're not seeing weight loss. They claim to be eating the number of calories or macros you give them. What
What
do you
would
say?
you tell them?
What do you
Yeah.
do?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
All these like situational questions. Like if you think of like whatever someone's going to ask you in like a check-in, like we would just take out some of those questions and be like, all right, answer them. Um, and they were always really good. Like most people were pretty good. And one of the most interesting ones we did was like set up the macros for a certain person, and we had like different
Mm,
avatars. And one of them was like I think it was like a 350-pound guy, like completely hypothetical. And it's funny to see. And this is like the biggest educational opportunity I think for people because we're so ingrained that like what is it like zero point 0.7 per protein per gram of body weight to
per
one
pound.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Kind of knew where people stood on their actual experience because like it's not uncommon to find a client that's 250, 300, 350 pounds over time, and if you give them 200, 300 grams of
There's
protein,
protein.
they're just gonna quit. They're gonna quit. They're gonna be like, dude, I'm not eating six chickens. Like it's insane. So it was stuff like that where it's like, all right, we can kind of see if people know what they're talking about. And it's not like, if somebody gets that one not perfect, we're not going to like throw them to the side. You can easily explain like coaching like morbidly obese clients is way different than coaching like the CrossFitter that wants to lose 10 pounds. And that's why experience is so important because the people that don't have experience just go based on the textbook science. It's like, well,
Yeah.
when you work with these people, like I had someone that just loved protein. So I gave her
Same.
more than textbook. It's funny because I actually think that was our first bad review. She talked about it in a Facebook group, and someone who had no interaction with us, was not a client, was like, they said, you could get better meal plans at McDonald's. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't even know who you are. But they got mad because I had her over body weight protein. I'm like, dude, she just likes protein. She's, she was like a power lifter. She was lean. Like, preference matters. It's like when you work with like a vegan or vegetarian and you want to give them body weight or close to protein and they have challenges with doing that. Hey, guess what? It's a customer service move to lower it. You're going
Yeah.
to be fine. Like they're going to be fine. I've had
Yeah.
people that were like, well, I feel like it's my job to push them and get them to do it. It's like, okay, like they're not going to do it. So then what? They're
Right.
going to leave and go somewhere else.
So, next we talked about marketing with Mike. He is a genius marketer, and Alex and I are both just really big fans of how he does it. And a big way that he does it is his clients are his advocates for him. I don't think it's any secret after you've been listening to this podcast that Mike is very passionate about what he does, and he wants to serve and help as many people as possible. So, our question for him was, how do you empower your customers to become advocates for your coaching program?
Thank you, first of all. I like to hear that because I've always pretended I never did marketing. I just didn't really pay for it. Um, I don't know. It's again one of these things that I'm like, I need to write this because I could get really like pretty deep about it. But I think first it's like first you create a brand that is giving people what they come to you for, which is not what a lot of people are doing in this industry. A lot of people are like, "Hey, I want to lose fat," and they're like, the coaches are like, "No, I want to give you something else." It's like, okay, well, you're kind of not aligned. So give them what they want, sell them what they need, like basic business. Create a culture that is empowering for people to help each other and just be buddies. Um, Give them the tools to talk about your program, whether it's some kind of referral or just like the feeling of like where everyone listening to this podcast, I'm assuming, is like in the industry. We sell something that makes everybody's lives better. Like, why wouldn't people want to share that? And I would straight up talk like that. I would post in my group, like, thank you guys so much for talking about this. You are changing people's lives as much as we are. Like, you are why all these people are coming here. And I would just beat them over the head with it. Like, we are a team here. It is not just the coaches changing the lives or the crazy guy at the top. It is every person here is playing a part in this, and it just created this like vibe that like hell yeah, we're gonna grow this thing. And I was always upfront. Like everybody knew my story. Like I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life, and I'm trying to at first I was just trying to quit my full-time job, and then it was like I want to help as many people as humanly possible. Hey, by the way, I also want to give people in this field jobs. So like everyone was like, let's help this dude, like he's helping us, let me help him. So that was kind of it. It was like I just created this culture that like everybody just wanted to help and make it as awesome as possible.
Yeah, seems like you're creating a we versus
Yeah.
just a you kind of thing. It's just like it's
Yep.
not you achieving the goals, you growing all these people, you helping 50,000 people. It's we're
Yep.
all doing this together, and you can help me, or we together can help as many people as possible if we're spreading this by word of mouth and getting everyone in
Right.
on the
That's
mission.
it. Like you nailed
Yeah,
it better than I did. Yeah. Like it was just big team.
yeah,
Like we would joke like stronger us. Like not
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that was it. I was like, damn, I could have named this different. But yes, that was it. And I feel like there's always like this thing like I am the coach, you are the customers, or like in business, I am the corporation, you are the customers. I'm like, I don't give a shit what these labels are. Like we're all in this together. You pay us to do this thing. We give you this thing, you spread it for other people, and then everybody's happy. So
yeah.
yeah, like that's it. I think we just did a really good job at that.
So, if you haven't caught on yet, Mike loves helping people. He loves giving advice, but he's also a master marketer. So, we asked him the question of how do you find the balance between marketing yourself and giving free help?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of treated these places like platforms. Like you know how everybody's on Instagram giving advice? It's like I'm just going to go to the smaller pond like with less fishermen in it, and I'm going to give advice all over the place and not just posts that are like clearly marketing. Like I'm in the comments like of all these places where someone was like, I'm trying to lose fat, but I can't, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to solve their problem. And I know there's like 40 people watching. And then I would just go to places where I knew our clients were, like the CrossFit Masters group or the Peloton Nutrition or Tonal or the official Peloton group. Like people in these places want help, but they don't want to be sold. So don't be like one of those weirdo, like sly salespeople because like everybody knows who you are now. Yeah. So, but like this is kind of the thing. Like my luck is I would do this anyway. So I was doing this and then I turned it into a job. So if you're doing it backwards, it's probably not going to work because you don't want to do it. Like,
Yeah,
because you're going to start measuring the effectiveness. Like, I never measured. I just went in these groups and I said, I'm just going to answer a bunch of shit because I want to answer it. And it ultimately turned into clients. If people go in there and say, I'm going to get clients by answering stuff, they're going to say, how many clients did I get today? Well, the answer is probably zero, but you're planting seeds for the fruit later. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like you have to want to do these things, and that's where it's like I could create a system where here's what everybody needs to do to grow a business. But if you don't want to do it, like it's just not going to work. Which is why I still do it. Like if anybody needs proof of why I entered this field, if you think I got into it for money, then why the hell am I still doing the job for $0?
I was gonna say it sounds like the question of like balancing between marketing yourself and giving free help. It's like the balance is you just give free help all the time and it turns
Yeah.
into your marketing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was known in all these places. Listen to Mike. Everyone knew. Just listen to what I said. Don't worry about all those other people.
I feel like a lot of coaches get worried that if they share too much or give too much free advice, people won't hire you. And
Yeah.
I had someone in my DMs asking me that. I'm like, you realize they could just Google, they don't have to ask you,
Yeah.
they could just Google whatever questions that we live in a time where any thing you want to do in life, you can just Google it. You want to build a house, you can YouTube it. You want to reconstruct your kitchen, you
Yeah.
can find a YouTube video of someone doing it. Like no one needs
Yeah.
professionals, like technically, but people value their time and they value making sure they're doing the right thing. They value accountability and all these things. So it's like show your authority and give away your free advice is everything that you can. And then people will be like, wow, if this is the free stuff I'm getting, imagine what I'm going to get from them when I'm paying them.
Yeah, I actually got into it with someone. I think it's like a business coach or something. She's like, I don't basically like don't ask me for free advice because I have clients who are paying. And I was like, well, and I had a bunch of people that follow me that was supporting it. And I'm like, I know how all your businesses are going, and you better be doing everything to be supportive. You don't need
Yeah.
to gatekeep what you give. You need to
Right.
do the opposite. And I commented on it and I told her, and she got really weird about it and said some weird things that like were definitely she talked about how I was just a stupid dude, basically. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I'm gonna go away.
All
I
right.
think you
Let me know
should
how
give
all that's
more.
working for you later.
You need to give more. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're at this elite level, like which we were doing like $25,000 a day in business, and I'm still in these places giving free shit. I could have been like, nope, too good for you. And that's how I read those things. Yeah, no. And now like it's just what I love to do. It's what I like to help, and it built the business. And I don't know. So I have very strong opinions about this stuff. Like, if you want to help people and have a successful coaching business, like, just be everywhere and help people. That's like, okay, or you're a moving van, right? And you see your neighbor like drop a frigging kitchen table on the ground. You're gonna be like, oh no, you gotta hire my company. Screw your neighbor. Like, that's how I see it. So great example.
So we're moving into the final segment of our podcast with Mike, and this was our rapid fire question segment. So we have 5 questions here that we asked him. And the first one is about his investment into Bavona. He's actually a co-owner of a small local restaurant. And so we had some questions about that. And so the first one was, with your background in nutrition and fitness, what motivated you to invest in a small local restaurant like Bavona's? How does it align with your personal and professional interest? And what is your favorite item on the menu?
So first, I knew the guy Chuck, who is my co-owner. He approached me and was like, "Yo, dude, I have this idea for a local shop in Newburgh, which I love Newburgh, and I want to make it like a cool spot. I love helping entrepreneurs like live their dream because I am very fortunate enough to like know what it's like to have a job you don't hate. And in the restaurant industry, like it's a grind. Like you're working
Yeah.
terrible hours. So we were like, all right, let's figure out how to build a place that's like really niche, cool, and helps you out. And that was really it. Like I don't really care about the money as much as I do like helping a dude live his dream and help the local community. So that's it for me. It's like I have investments in other businesses where I just want it to make money and stuff, but this is one of those things where it's like passion project for me and him. Have a cool thing.
You
Favorite
just really
menu
love helping
item.
people at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Like
I
that's
love
your
it.
mission behind everything is
Yeah.
helping people.
Like I thought
Yeah.
about it, and I've said this a while ago, and if I ever do another business, it's probably somewhere in this world. But my goal is to like help people have more enjoyable lives because life
Mm.
is too short to be doing crap you don't want to do all day.
Yeah.
So like when I go in there and I see the perfect dude for this job, just slinging pasta and meatballs, dude, I'm like super fulfilled. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite menu item? Oh, man, he makes this pork sandwich with these Italian long hots and whipped ricotta. Oh my god.
Oof.
Yeah, it's so good.
Delicious.
We do a few things and he does them well. It is not one of these places where you walk in and you have 50 choices. It is a few items every day, and that's it. And he kills it. And it's one of those places where it's like the old school barber shop. Like you go in and people are just talking to each other while they
Yeah.
wait. It's not like it's like a little community in there. It's so cool. He's the perfect guy for it though. So that's like, sidebar business advice. Like you have to be the right person for the business you want to do.
The next question that we asked Mike pertained to him being a father of two girls and his experience in the health and fitness world and industry. So we asked him, how has becoming a father of two girls influenced your perspective on health, nutrition, and overall well being? Has it changed your approach to fitness or your investment choices?
Don't make me cry. Yeah, no, it's amazing. First of all, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I think it's probably made me a little like more flexible with stuff because like you think you know what it's like for a parent, but you don't have a clue until you see it and live it. So like I'm a little more flexible with stuff, a little more lenient. In terms of investments, like I'm like very much like let's make the world a better place. Like let's not like make
Yeah.
it a crappy place for especially young girls to live in. So that's kind of where my head's at. It's like I just want to make the world a little bit better somehow, especially with like little girls watching me. So
Yeah.
it just makes me think twice about everything I do now.
Our next question for Mike is, or what are his plans? We wanted him to share any future plans or projects that he's excited about and ask him if he had any new ventures or initiatives on the horizon.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. Like I think every few days, like there needs to be something that just like systemizes a way to help people live a quality life. And I have some like methodologies in my head that I do like pretty much every day that I think have made life pretty cool. So I'm like, oh man, could this be an app? Could it just be like a journal of sorts? Like, so I always think like that. I have a very creative business mind, and I'm always thinking of like what's next. But I'm also hesitant to do anything because I know that it takes a lot of work, and I don't really want to do it yet. In terms of like the industry, like I don't know what I would want to do. Like I still do have pretty much around 3 years. Like, would I want to do coaching? Would I want to create courses? Would I want to do like some formal consulting? I don't know. But like I might just do like a blog and write stuff, like some of the things we talked about, like get a little bit deeper on that to get my fix. Other than that, I don't know, man. Like I thought about doing like a personal finance version of StrongerU. Like people really suck with money and it's the
It's a
same
big one.
behaviors
Yeah.
and like make it a community vibe. Like someone could try to steal my idea, whatever. So that's it. Like, I mean, just you could, right? Like, why am I scared of someone taking that when I literally gave them the game plan to run a nutrition company? They still don't do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how much advice is out there from me that like you can't just plug and play it? That goes back to the first question where it's like you have to be the right person for the job.
Right.
And so yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. I don't really know. Like I always think of like, is there something in like the dad or parenting world that like could make life easier for parents? Like I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
it's it's crazy. What I would do if I was in the field is probably like a subscription model for like workouts, nutrition plans for like parents to be healthier and stronger as their kids get heavier in age because there is nothing more emotionally tied to fitness than like being active for your kids. And these little shits get so heavy so fast. And you
Well, that's
see,
a big like niche into that is like just
yeah,
supporting parents. You
that's
know what
it.
I mean?
Like,
And then the community you
yep,
create around that would be massive.
yep.
I
You're
mean,
gonna do the workouts that translate to real life, moving
yeah.
kids. Like I take my daughter off my little seat bike and I pick her up and I put her down and I'm like, ooh, like what is that movement? You know what I mean? Like the bear
You
crawls,
name all the
crawling on the floor.
exercises, lifting child off the bike, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And
And
do
then you do like
12 reps of
video, like
those.
here's the movement with weights. Here's how it translates to real life. Like, come here, kid. I'm gonna exploit you on the internet. Oh, dude, I am sure people have kids just to use them on social media to build out their brands. I am certain of
Yeah,
it.
honestly.
I am certain of it, man. It is wild. Like I've joked about this the other day. There was a popular dad page I was following. I was like, yeah, this dad does cool stuff. And then I realized like a minute into the video that it was a commercial for Bounty paper towels. And I'm like, I hate this. Like, I I thought you were like showing us. You're showing us like family life, and it's actually just cleaning up spills with paper towels. There's going to be parents that cannot do any of this because they
Right.
just didn't do a few simple things every
Right.
week. Oh my God, it's so, dude. Like thinking of like a subscription model of like, there's a lot of those things like the parent community. Like, hey, our
Right.
kids are our kids are like training us progressive overload, right?
Yeah.
50 pounds. Like, there's going to be
Yeah.
a day where your daughter is still going to be okay with you picking her up, but you physically can't.
Right.
Like, that sucks. Now I got to go lift. Let's wrap it up. No.
So, next we asked Mike about the future of coaching and fitness. So, our question for him was, how do you see the landscape of personalized nutrition coaching evolving in the future? Are there any trends or advancements that you believe will shape the industry?
I hope that there's like so much. It's weird. There's like so many companies out there that are like data, 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 which sounds a little like conflicting because I think data is great to an extent. I think there's just so much money in selling the illusion of value from data from all these companies with like, put this thing on your ring finger, put this on your wrist, put this in your arm, put this in your house. Like, people don't need all this information. I think a lot of the industry thinks that it is helpful because a lot of these companies raise massive amounts of money from investors, but it's like money invested in these things don't mean efficiency. It means that some sucker is going to buy it.
Hmm.
And I think the landscape can change to being clearly more simple, which is like your standard operating procedure. It'd be simple. Like, here's what you need to do, worry about nothing else. Like, my thoughts on health. Like, when I see these people doing this crazy stuff every morning, I'm like, man, you're so stressed out now, you are less healthy. I don't know if you know this, but yeah, it's like you wake up, you feel great, and then this thing is like, no, you don't, you piece of crap. You slept awful,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have a terrible day. We have to be careful to place value on data just because we can have the data.
Yeah.
Like, you can mine this data, but it is irrelevant in many cases. Like, just because
Yeah.
you get it doesn't mean you have to do something with it, which is like
Right.
why I'm so like, eat the right number of calories and protein for your goal. Don't worry about anything else.
And for our final question with Mike, we asked him if you could offer one piece of advice to individuals seeking to improve their health and well being, what would it be?
Oh man, it's so hard to just to pick one. And like, if you asked me this question at like 3 p.m. versus now, I'd probably say something different. But like, I don't know, like
Maybe do like top three. Do you have like a top three?
I have like a top 15. No, no. Like, just, I think people need to plan their day.
Yeah.
I think if you plan your day, you're going to make better decisions because you're seeing it. Like, you're not just
Yeah.
waking up and reacting based on your biological, environmental impulses.
Yeah.
Probably reduce alcohol consumption. Not just is excess alcohol bad for you, but you do a lot of silly things when you drink.
Yeah.
Um, Primarily like eating lots more food and sleeping like crap.
Yeah.
Just walking, getting out there, moving in general. I think people emphasis way too much um, on working out and too little on general movement. And I think like,
Yeah.
just from where I stand, a lot of our clients were like 7 day a week Peloton riders who would like bust their ass, but like get like 3,200 steps a day. So it's
Yeah.
like, what if you did a little bit less of those rides and a little bit more stuff like that? Like, my overall like philosophy for health is like, eat the right amount of food, um, make it primarily healthy food, but don't demonize the fun stuff because that's not a way to live. Reduce stress, walk, work out, have community, sleep, drink water, wear sunscreen. Like, nothing there is like weird, wacky. You don't have to jump in
Yeah.
cold baths. You don't have to avoid sugar. You can't be reckless. And
Yeah.
these things create like a healthy person. And then
Yeah.
you add in luck and circumstance, and you could do all the right things, but something can happen to you. And I think I said it on a post a couple weeks back, but I want my health to be the result of like the decisions I made and not just rely on like making the wrong decisions or luck.
Yeah.
Like if something bad happens to me health wise, I want it to be bad luck versus bad decisions.
I actually have one more thing I want to add to that, just because
Yeah.
we said individuals seeking their health and well-being, because we talk a lot towards coaches in this podcast.
Yeah.
Any just like one piece of advice, and again, this might be like you have a top 15, but any one piece of advice you just offer to a coach, and you could take that from just starting out or currently in the biz, however you take that question.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think I have a lot of thoughts here, but I think
I figured you did.
we're in a weird place where like everybody's like balance, don't work too hard, don't do this. But I think a lot of people aren't in a place to dial it back yet. And I
Mm,
think when we think of successful people in the world, what do? They do really crazy stuff to get ahead.
yeah,
Not weirdly ethical or illegal things. They just work their asses off, whether it's a professional athlete, an actor, successful person in business. Like you got to push until you don't have to push anymore. And for
yeah,
me, like people that was watching my story, they saw like I was a lunatic. I was on, and that's why it worked. And then when I had the opportunity to dial it back, I did. So I think if I could give some advice to people is like turn it on when you need to, and don't think that this stuff happens accidentally. Like you have to be a kind of a
million
crazy
percent.
person for a little while, but
Yeah,
work on what matters, which is making the customers happy and successful,
yeah,
not perfect font or perfect branding or perfect colors or perfect reels. Like make sure you're giving the customer what they want, because there is not a single product in this world that is remarkable that isn't growing. Every
yeah,
remarkable product or service in this world has success. So if you're not
yeah.
growing, make sure you're giving a remarkable experience to people.
And that is the end of this episode with Mike. Alex actually closed us out on this episode. And as you guys know, I lost his audio. So we don't have an official closeout. So this is going to be the official closeout. As always, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for your patience through this episode and listening to it. And I think I did a pretty good job of editing it so that we could still enjoy this episode without Alex being able to join us. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot it and share in your stories. This is a free way for you to support the show, and it really, really helps us to get the word out. And if you guys have any feedback or any other additional questions, we are always in our DMs to chat. And make sure to follow Mike. His handle on Instagram and I think most of social media is Mike Doehla, and Doehla is spelled Doehla. So be sure to give him a follow, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.